Hello, this is Eld from highheelsandgreatdeals.co.uk, and I wanted to talk today about patch 6.0.2. It's been live on the servers for a couple of hours now, and I thought I'd give my first impressions and how I feel that it's going, some of the things that don't feel quite right, some of the things that do feel quite right, and just generally a quick overview to help those that are looking at starting their disc priests in 6.0.2 and getting them up to speed. So first off, the character models look absolutely great. And that's the first thing that you notice that really stands out. Also, the outlines around things will be a little bit off-putting to start with, but within 15 minutes you'll realise that you don't really notice them anymore. So the first thing to do when you get your character is not really cry about the amount of spaces you'll now have on your action bars, but you just need to spend about 5-10 minutes setting up and going through the spell book looking at the spells. If you looked at the previous video where we looked at the spells that were coming and went through each of them in turn, then you'll have a better idea of what's going on. Then it's a question of setting up your sort of glyphs, because the first thing you probably want to do is go ahead and do the Iron Horde invasion quests. They'll take you about 15 to 20 minutes and you'll get a nice pet at the end of it. To be honest, as I did those in the first few hours of the server coming up, it kind of felt less like an invasion, but 1 or 2 or 3 sort of mobs chasing me. One thing you will do though that's quite important is there is one quest where you have to find objects. This is something that definitely in the beta took me a little while to get used to, is the fact that you'll find glowing things on the walls and objects like that, and it just takes a bit of searching out these things, but it's a kind of a taster of things to come. But once you've done but to do the invasion, really, there's going to be no different to, say, if you were questing on the Timeless Isle. You're still going to be using your things like Shadow Word Pain, I always get it wrong, and you're going to be using Smite and Penance and Holy Fire or Solace, depending on which talents you've got. In terms of the Glyphs, I ran with Penance so I could move around a bit and attack things on the move, because I'll be fighting for mobs against other people. Glyph of Smite and Glyph of Reflective Shield, so I can do that extra little bit of damage. But as I say, it'll take you 15 to 20 minutes, you get a nice little pet at it at the end, and it's a good bit of fun. After that, what I wanted to do was try out my healings. So with a group of guildies, we hit up the Upper Blackrock Spire, and that was a fairly straightforward dungeon. And there's a few bosses in there. Obviously, you can't go all the way through until you get to a level 100, but we managed to fairly easily clear that. Now, as a guild, we're pretty well geared, so actually there was very little damage going out into the raid. Into the group. I then also went into LFR and just had a little play with healing there. And some of the things that are definitely different is you'll notice that Atonement healing does heal for less, so you're going to have to do something slightly different. It's the usual drill where you'll want to use your Power Word Shield on any people that are low on health, and also keep it rolling on the tanks. You want to use your Penance defensively if someone drops really low, particularly the tanks, as it's a quick way to bring them back up. You'll want to use your level 90 talents still, and I'll talk about those a little bit later, and then also your level is it the 75 ones, but it's the choice of Power Infusion, Twist of Fate and Spirit Shell. I ran with Power Infusion in the end because I wanted that extra little bit of throughput rather than preempting, which in LFR probably isn't quite as useful as, say, a Spirit Shell when you've got an organised group. So healing wise, what you need to do is get used to the fact that you've got less spells to do things. But really, from our point of view as a disc priest, there's not going to be too much of a change. It's pretty much as we were before. It's just we don't heal quite as much and pop as many shields from our level 90 talents. That said, you are going to have to get used to a slightly different rotation. As we said, that Atonement won't simply bring everybody up enough. What I ended up doing really was a lot of Holy Nova. It's a new spell, maybe I overused it, but Holy Nova seemed to be a go-to filler. So what I would be doing is I'd be penancing and then Holy Fire or Solacing to make sure I was building up my evangelism stacks for Archangel, because Archangel is a major cooldown really. It does increase our healing throughput somewhat, and it's nice to have if you know that there's a tricky bit coming. So for example, something on like Iron Juggernaut on LFR, you know when the pulse modes goes to swaps to siege mode, and then you know that when the pulse shocks come through that you're going to need to be able to pick up people quickly. So using Archangel then, and then your level 90 talents and hitting Holy Fire, and hitting Holy Nova when people are around, soon brought people up to full health again. That with a power infusion as well worked really well. So one thing I did find is that really Holy Nova is a filler instead of Smite, particularly if your group is stacked somewhat and you can hit 2 or 3 people, because you'll do more healing per second that way than you would do through Atonement. Everything else stands. If you see the whole of a group going down, you can use your Prayer of Healing. I still use Prayer of Mending when I've got a bit of downtime as well, just to have something passively jumping around. But really for us it's the penancing, either offensive when you're hitting the boss or defensively to bring somebody back up. It's using your Power Word Shield, and it's also then the usual things to build up Archangel so you can use it effectively as a cooldown when you need it with Power Infusion or Spirit Shell. One thing that a few of us, I was talking with some of the other Disc Priests in the guild, found just on day one is that mana is not an issue at all. I didn't really see my mana drop below 90%. Now, I admit my gear is somewhat high in terms that it's heroic or the best normal, upgraded as many times as you can, but also some of the lower geared Disc Priests in the guild were saying that actually mana just isn't a problem. It was almost hard to try and go out of mana. You could sit and just spam Holy Nova all the time, and yes, it'll pad the meters and will actually overheal for a change, which is nice to, which is a different thing to see in the meters where after you record a fight, is that we actually have overhealing of about 60% at times. But mana really, and it doesn't feel quite right. I suspect this will be different when it gets to Warlords, or perhaps it'll be different in a raid other than LFR. But at the moment, it really didn't seem to be a problem. Also, Cascade just didn't seem to work as the talent, as a level 90 talent here. For whatever reasons, Halo worked better or Divine Star. I tried it out on different encounters. Also, the visuals for Cascade didn't fill me with a lot of confidence. I was used to seeing things bouncing around. It seems to only show you the first tick that leaves now. So whether they've changed something in the visuals, it just I just had to keep checking my action bars to make sure the actual thing had gone off. Also, it having a cast time, having you been used to cast these things on the move, it's very much getting used to that, is stopping still and turreting for a bit while you actually cast your level 90 spell. So those are the things I think you're going to need to look out for. It's certainly in the first few days, but take 15, 20, 30 minutes or so to go through your spell book. Make sure that you map out any keybinds that you have to more relevant keys, in the sense that you'll be working out what you're going to need to heal more. So you'll be using Flash Heal, you'll be using Heal just as you would do before, your Power Word Shield, but also make sure you get Holy Nova on a key that's easy to hit if you're keybinding, or you put it somewhere very close on your action bars if you're going to click it, because you're going to be using it an awful lot, I think, in the next expansion. That's about it for the first overview. I'll give you a better update once we've started raiding as a guild again and we're looking at some of the normal and heroic modes as we take down Garrosh for the heirlooms and things like that, because I think that'll get a better idea of where healing is at this point. But I just wanted to give you a quick guide and a quick overview of what I thought after a few hours of playing, but I'm pleasantly surprised. We're lucky in the sense that our secondary stats are crit and mastery, which is going to give us big juicy hit, shields, so everything feels normal from that point of view. We don't have to change or respec or try and find items to fit the right secondary stuff. And actually healing doesn't change too much, but if you think of Holy Nova almost as your new Smite spell, you'd not be far off wrong there. And that's it. Thank you very much.